Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is episode 7 of season 5, Amy's Choice. When faced with two realities, it's up to Amy to choose the real life from the dream and death. This episode is written by Simon Nye, directed by Catherine Morsehead. It originally aired on the 15th of May, 2010, and was watched by 7.55 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
This is Brian.
Hi, this is Kelsey, and this is definitely the real one.
This is Josh.
Hey, this is Heather.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Frank.
The Doctor returns to Earth 5 years after parting ways with Amy and Rory. Now they are happily married, expecting their first child and living in a small, quaint town. And Rory has a ponytail. As in all small, quaint towns, something odd lies below the surface. As they are having a pleasant, dull conversation, they hear the birds begin to chirp very loudly, and the trio falls asleep. They awake back on the Tardis, this time 5 years in the past. They realize they all had the same dream of the town, and the Doctor investigates the warning lights blinking on the TARDIS console. The sound of birds chirping is heard once more, which again puts them to sleep. They awake back in the quaint town and feel like this is real, and they only dreamt of being in the TARDIS. Which reality is the real one, or are they traveling through 2 points in time?
First of all, that's an intro, man.
Probably one of the best cold opens in Doctor Who history.
But seeing Amy pregnant, you know something's going on, and then you see the ponytail, it's like, okay, something bad is going on. Oh, the whole hair and ponytail. It wasn't just the ponytail, but everything was like, that's just off. That's so wrong.
I was gonna say, I like how it starts with the music, like carefree, lighthearted,
Peaceful and
yeah.
boring.
And he's riding a bike, which reminds me of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That sort of theme, with the musically going on.
Raindrops.
Speaking of which,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Raindrops falling in your head, and you just look at this. It's pouring the entire time they're filming.
My favorite part is when the doctor's delayed realization that she's pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
No, your size, and Rory's age. It's the only two differences.
Speaking of her being pregnant, here's that exchange. The Doctor, you swallowed a planet? Amy, I'm pregnant. The Doctor, you're huge. Amy, yeah, I'm pregnant. The Doctor, look at you when worlds collide. Amy, Doctor, I'm pregnant. The Doctor, look at you both 5 years later and you haven't changed a bit apart from age and size. Amy, it's good to see you, Doctor. The Doctor, are you pregnant? There's just the exchange, the banter is just great between these three.
I really liked when Amy calls to Rory and they have the sequence of shots where it's like a bird flying off of a tree and then gets wider and wider, and then Rory is biking in. Like, I think Kelsey has done something similar in a video. I'm thinking the puppet video.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I was going to research because I feel like that's a common sequence, but I don't know where it got started. So if somebody knows some film history.
Oh, yeah.
I think it has some good lines and some good writing in this episode.
Oh, yeah. There's some great subtle like innuendos and just looks that they give each other and reactions. I didn't write anything down, but it was kind of constant. This is one of the funniest episodes that isn't on the page, I think. It's just a lot of looks they give each other and beats and Rory's reaction behind the Doctor and even Amy's reaction, and then like just little things and stuff. It's really, this is definitely an episode you have to watch. You can't really just listen to it and appreciate it as much.
I love it when they're happy about the reunion, and Amy's like, so you're visiting us. I never thought you would visit us. We never thought we'd see you ever again. And he's like, what? I don't abandon people. And she just goes, you came here by mistake, right? I came here by mistake. Okay. Which, begins the kind of theme of the Doctor abandoning people.
Yeah, no, that's a really good line that I think I missed on the first couple of viewings because it's so quick.
Back to Josh and piggybacking off of Brian, it was like really hard to take notes because it keeps jumping back and forth really quick, and if you are trying to dissect it, you're like, wow, we just keep reliving the same beats. But if you sit back and watch it, it's so enjoyable to like get taken through the story because it just does keep you moving.
You don't even realize that it's a cold open. You just feel like you're
So much has happened.
Yeah, so much has happened. And then the last shot with the doctor walking closer to the camera and Rory and Amy in the background. He goes, "This is going to be a doozy."
Right.
It's like, you know, you're in for a fun
Yeah.
episode, and I love that.
Well, even just the wig. The wig tells you that they didn't. They could, and I understand this is still in the timeline production wise that they're not the biggest. They're not the biggest budget show, but knowing that they didn't put any more effort into that wig tells you that like this is gonna be a funny episode.
No, because it's for Rory, so they're like, clearly this
Right.
is the amount of effort that he would put into his hair.
Right.
In this
And
one.
it wasn't just like they put a little extension on. They had to give him a whole wig.
Right?
But I love when they jump back to the TARDIS. First Amy and then the Doctor are like, what's different? And they both check for the ponytail right away.
I didn't catch that. Maybe that's at the end. You said.
Amy does it first, and then when Rory, I think, is talking with Amy, the Doctor comes up behind him and
Yes.
is like he's got like scared eyes, like I'm gonna move the hoodie. Oh, you know.
That's great.
And then the doctor's also examining Amy's belly at one point, or
Yes.
like visually
Oh,
examining
right.
it.
In the TARDIS, or
Yeah, when they
in the
jump
middle?
back to
Yes.
the
Oh,
TARDIS.
I understand.
After he
Really?
checks for the
When they
ponytail,
first show up
he
back
opens
in-
up her
Oh,
jacket.
Right.
I missed
Well,
that.
she also comes out clutching her stomach like
Yeah.
something's different.
Yeah. Rory is referring to this as a nightmare, and the TARDIS is a nightmare, and the Doctor's referring to it as a dream.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah. But it is still like Rory doesn't even consider the Upper Ledworth a nightmare. It's like,
No,
"Oh, that's
to
a nice
him, it's
dream."
his ideal future.
Yeah.
These three are so good with each other, though. If this is episode 8, right?
7.
7. So if you weren't convinced by now that this is a good doctor and these are good companions, I think maybe this, especially where the episode ends,
Yeah.
it puts everything. This is almost a turning point episode. I guess it is a turning point episode.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. We'll get to that when we talk about that moment, but I thought the same.
But also shows Rory being essential to the trio.
Yes.
I think adding Rory in there really makes all three of them work well together.
But at the time, I still was having major issues, so it's not for me yet.
Not even at the end? Not even at the end? We'll
Definitely
cross
not at
that
the
bridge
end.
when we get there. Definitely not at the end. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, interesting.
Once again on the TARDIS, the alarm is still going when the power shuts off. The birds chirp and they are back in the town. They notice all the people of a retirement home are watching them, so they go inside to poke around. Back on the lifeless TARDIS, which is getting very cold because of the power loss. Suddenly, a man calling himself the Dream Lord appears. He tells Amy he has seen her dreams, and that she needs to choose between her two men. One world is fake, and the other is real. To make it interesting, both will have deadly challenges, and that she must choose which is real to keep them alive.
The TARDIS set is just so cool. I know I've said that like every episode that we've been on this new TARDIS, but they keep showing it off and
When they're talking to each other through the floor.
Yeah,
the glass
different
floor.
levels and all the set design around the console, under
Yeah.
the console. It's just great.
There's another very, very Doctor line, and even back in the day, I thought this was a great Doctor line. Something doesn't make sense. Let's go poke it with a stick. That
Yeah.
very Doctor line.
The curiosity of the doctor shining
Yeah.
through dialogue.
You could argue that's the motto of the show.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Toby Jones is the actor, right?
Yes. Do you want to tell us where we've seen him before?
We've seen
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Where haven't you seen them?
Or heard him before.
Or-
More specifically, he played Armin Zola in the Marvel movies, starting with Captain America, First Avenger, and then he was in Hunger Games. He was in Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. The ones that I wrote down, he was in Sherlock. He was Culverton Smith in The Lying Detective on season 4. He's the voice of Dobby in Harry Potter.
Wait, I didn't know
I
that.
didn't know that.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Sponsored by
Yeah.
Coca-Cola.
He's Dobby.
He's Smee in Finding Neverland, and this is where I remember him for the first time was Ollie Weeks in The Mist with Stephen King's The Mist with Frank Darabont.
Never seen it.
It's one of my favorite movies. But he does a good job here. I agree. When the time shifts or the reality shift, the music cue, it sounds like to me reminds me of Forest of the Dead, where it's that reverse quality. So it goes back from Donna being in her dream and something going wrong,
Yes, yeah, it is very similar.
So it reminds me a lot of that. So I like that.
Oh, I would have to go
Yeah.
back. I wish I could. I want to watch these episodes with you, so you can just talk about music the whole time.
That's all my notes on music. Just kidding.
Or you can talk about music for 30 seconds. That's fine too.
Toby Jones also played Hitchcock in The Girl, which was a TV movie, sort of biopic about his obsession, I think, with, was it Janet Leigh from
I thought it
Psycho?
Tippi Hedren.
But Tippi Hedren,
Tippi
yeah.
He
Hedren
had
from The
obsessions
Birds.
with Annie
Yeah, with
Blonde.
that, yeah.
The doctor goes into the retirement home and calls them very old people when he's talking to Mrs. Poggett. And her look is threatening, which I kind of liked. Going, okay, so what is going on with them? He sees them as very old, and he's already, centuries old. I think at this point, is he 900?
Yeah,
I can't remember what.
he's
At this one,
907.
907?
Yeah,
Okay.
at this point. Yeah, and
And-
the other residents react to that as well. So they are telling the viewer, wink, wink, something's
Right.
important here.
So
Right.
on first viewing, it looks like they're just insulted.
Yeah, no, I didn't catch
Right.
on first viewing, so I figured they just didn't like being called that.
Right.
Plus, on top of it, that is the ugliest sweater I've ever seen, and I want it.
The one he wears? The one,
Doesn't even have to have the missing sleeve. I just want it.
I'm sure some fan crocheter has made it.
Speaking of clothes, when the doctor comes back to the town, he pulls out his suspender, which is blue. On the Tardis, he has more of a red maroon tie and suspenders. And in the town, it's blue tie and suspenders.
So the outfits between the two
Is it
dream
just- reversed.
worlds are different?
A reverse
Yes.
kind of coloring. Because
And-
Amy in town,
It's got the blue and the red, correct?
No, she has red and blue.
she has red over a blue.
Yeah.
Same
She has a big. And the other one is
I'm just
blue
naming the
over
colors. I'm not-
more of an orangey red. So hers are reversed.
Yeah.
And then Rory's all blue in town, and it's the same exact maroon as the tie in his sweatshirt when he's on the Tardis.
It's a subtle little thing where the Doctor and Rory are the same and Amy's opposite.
Ray Holman was the costume designer of this episode.
Well done, Ray.
Good on you.
Good job.
I know they called it out in the show, but I like how the Dream Lord is also always reflecting
Yeah.
the Doctor's look.
Because he starts off as the doctor, like item for item, and then later on he's like wearing a three-piece suit, like a real doctor.
I think at one point he is wearing a poncho after Amy makes
Yes.
ponchos
Yeah, he does
for
wear a
them.
poncho. Yeah.
Poncho spoiler.
That one resident, I don't want to say old person, walk,
Pensioner.
yeah, she walks by and she says, "Hello, doctor," and they both respond with "Hello," and then the doctor turns to Rory and goes, "Oh, you're a doctor now."
Yeah, and
Well, wasn't that
unlike
your dream?
you,
Yeah.
unlike you, I passed exams.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is really everything Rory ever wanted,
right.
but nobody else agrees.
I want to know, why is it Amy's choice? Or should we talk about that after?
Yeah, let's talk about that later.
Skip that. Cut that.
There's a lot of good character lines, little character bits, but I don't know exactly where they pop in because they're popping back and forth so much in all this. So I'm just going to throw one out right now. I like how at one point they refer to the realities as one's a time machine and one's a village time forgot.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good way to separate the two. And it's very Doctor versus Rory.
But both are timeless.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Mwah.
They wake up in the retirement home, and the Dream Lord continues. If you die in the fake world, you will wake up in reality, and his little game is over. But if you die in the real world, well, you're dead, stupid. He says that he has always been able to see through the Doctor, which makes Amy ask about their history. Instead of answering her, he disappears, and the Doctor tells them that he doesn't recognize this man. They go outside and see children playing in the park. The children walk out of sight, followed by the old woman from the retirement home. They go to see what she is up to and hear the chirping again. Back on the Tardis, Amy gathers some blankets and gets into a fight with Rory about which life each prefers. Rory winds up a makeshift generator, and the view screen turns on to show the Tardis drifting toward a cold star. If they don't get power soon, they will all freeze to death. The Dream Lord appears and tells them not to spend too long in town because this reality will only get colder.
There's a good point in this when they're walking out towards the park and Amy goes into labor and it's
Yes.
big concern, and everybody's, oh no, not now, and we have to take care of it. Oh, this is monumental. And then she's like, no, I'm fine. Don't ever call my life dull again. I liked that because you kind of needed a reason that Amy would choose this life, because other than that, she is really kind of like, it's boring, but it's my life and I like it.
And that hit home really well, I thought.
Yeah, because she was
It
also
really
like,
put the doctor in his place.
that's what she was doing. She
So I
also
like
needed to
that.
put the doctor in his place.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this episode just a couple weeks. Like, I watched it, and then a couple weeks passed, and I watched it again. And at that moment, I forgot that Amy was proving a point. I thought she really was going into labor, you know, so when she's like, then turns it on the doctor, and I was like, aha. And I was like, I just watched this 2 weeks ago. How did I not remember that was the point? But it's just this episode. It's just so
Because the
so
episode's
well done.
fun and you have to watch it a bit more passively. You know, as you were saying earlier, you can't try and dissect it. You can't just analyze it. It's like this one, you just have to go on this ride.
I love all the character beats and what the characters say, you know, and just when we were watching it last night, I got another one, the fight between Rory and Amy when she's pulling out the blankets. And
I mean, it's a subtle fight, but it shows so much.
you know, and he's like, you left the night before our wedding, and she was like, yeah, but it's a time machine, I would have come back at the same time.
It's always going to be the night before our wedding. or
Yeah.
something
Well,
like
For as
no,
long as
it's
we
even,
want.
that's
As long
it.
as we want.
That's the line. It can be the night before our wedding for as long as we want.
that. Right.
How do you think that makes Rory feel?
No, I was waiting for him to
That's
say.
devastating.
I was waiting for him to say something along the lines of like, "Well, I couldn't wait to get married.
Yeah.
Like, we could have had those moments as a married couple. There's no reason to postpone it because I wanted it to happen as soon as possible." It made me think of what you always said about Amy having a problem with her about being a two-timer, or, leaving Rory at the altar. It's just the point of marriage. But again, we have to remember we are looking at life and marriage from a viewpoint, from a 20-year difference between us and Amy. For someone who's younger and immature, isn't really ready for marriage yet.
How old is Amy? I don't remember.
She's supposed to be in her early 20s.
The 11th hour is a 7-year-old girl living with her aunt.
7.
7. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And then does it...
And then 12 years later,
12 plus 7 is...
19.
So she's 19. She's as old as Rose?
No, then there's 2
and
more
then
years.
2 years later,
then
by
2
the end of
years.
that episode,
Oh,
so she's
she's
21.
21.
She's 21.
When she starts being a full-time companion with the doctor.
Yeah, early 20s.
We don't do math on this podcast, please. I didn't join this podcast to do
24,
math.
25.
Still. Then don't get married.
Well, yeah, she wasn't going to.
If you can't handle it, don't get married.
People don't know they can handle it yet. They think they can. They're expected to. All these expectations. They've been together forever.
In that fight that we've been mentioning, Rory says, "We have to grow up eventually," and Amy says who? And it reminds me of the fourth Doctor, Tom Baker. What's the point of growing up if you can't be a little childish sometimes?
Right.
Just that childish
reminds
part
you of
just
that.
reminds me of the fourth Doctor.
But I think Arthur is such a good actor. You could see that in Rory, where you're saying, like, I can't wait to get married.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think without having to say it, you feel it,
Right.
and you get it from him. And he does say, we all have to grow up sometime, or eventually.
Right.
Eventually.
And what does Amy say?
What's her response?
Says who?
And walks away. And it's just
Right.
devastating, but it shows that, I guess when we were younger, we all felt the same way, that marriage is some kind of end to things. Because once you're married, then you have to become an adult. You have to have all these other responsibilities, rather than just a transition of being with somebody.
From
And
what
she's not ready
I-
for that, and I don't think she realizes how much she loves Rory at this point.
Well, because Rory makes it too easy on her. He's always there. He's very accessible, and she just knows he's not ever going to leave her or go anywhere. So there's no for her having the life that she's had. There's no sense of urgency. There's, what's the
Rory is
difference?
stable.
What's the difference between marriage or not marriage? At this point, things will change.
But also right, and also on the other end, the doctor being the man of her dreams ever since she was a child,
Right.
is now here and has the
Yeah.
opportunity to go on these adventures.
Yeah.
And it's falling in love with the doctor idea, but that's more of just superfluous, in that it's all the excitement rather than any deep connection to the
I mean, I
doctor.
kind of understand it. I kind of understand it's unfortunate that this man of your dreams returns the night before your wedding, and that sucks.
Right.
I think she's selfish, and she should just get over it and live her life. But at the same time, I do understand.
I would understand it and have some sympathy for her if we could edit she was going to pounce on the doctor. Because to me, that moves it from doubts, which everybody has, to actively cheating on Rory. And I don't like that at all. And the whole time I'm watching this, I can't get that scene out of my head where it's like, no, you don't just have doubts. You were going to sleep with the doctor the night before you were marrying Rory. And to me, that's unconscionable.
But because of that kiss, that's what the doctor is like, okay, I got to get her infatuation off of me. Right. He goes back and gets Rory to go to, the vampires in Venice and all that.
You didn't need the kiss to spur that,
now
though.
Rory's part of it.
No, you didn't.
But that's still the subtext of the Dream Lord's whole machination with this is the doctor really over Amy, or really want Rory to come in to be with Amy? Or, I mean, he still has his own doubts, apparently, if those dark places are in there.
But I see those doubts as Amy's the type of person who wants the adventure. But at the same time, this is the doctor's dream, which I've always found fascinating. This isn't Amy's. This is the doctor's dream, and the doctor has subconsciously set this both up. To me, this is how I see it. Choose between Rory and an adventurous life, not being with the doctor.
But that's what makes it so interesting, and that's why Rory has the ponytail, thinking that this is what makes him exciting, where Rory in reality wouldn't. He is exciting. He does have outside activities. He's not just that, but this is how the doctor sees him. Because Rory could be happy with being a nurse.
Yeah, I always thought that. Rory's happy being a nurse. I didn't think he wanted to become a doctor.
Right, but the doctor thinks, no, you have to aspire a bit more to be something else. So he's like, no, I'm going to put him as a doctor.
He's doing that extreme,
right.
You must be in the most boring town that time forgot. And that's good. I like that. This is
the only way you could be exciting is if everything else was crazy boring.
Right, it's how he sees them, which is like, that's throwing it off with the whole hair and the ponytail, going, no, that's what you think is exciting? Come on.
And to your earlier point, that when the doctor, in the other episode, when the doctor goes and gets Rory to kind of put a barrier in between him and Amy so she can not fall for him, for the doctor, it's almost like, well, if I put someone else there, if I bring Rory here, then I don't have to worry about changing. I don't have to fix my boundaries. I'll just bring an obstacle in, so I can still do whatever I want. So it's still scapegoating or shirking his personal responsibility as a friend or a companion of someone else to behave properly. I can still behave improperly as long as Rory's here.
I think he brought Rory more as a reminder of what she had.
Yes, but it also gave him permission to still flirt.
Yeah.
And be exciting and cocky and
he can still stay on adventures with her.
Yeah, and still put them in danger because it's Rory who will keep them grounded. I don't have to worry about almost getting them killed because Rory will worry about that for me.
And Rory calls him on it. I mean, Vampires of Venice, he was going, you keep putting people in danger.
Yeah. Well, Rory gets angry at him in this too, which I really like because that's setting up the contrast between the two.
Amy's not innocent either. I mean, she can make her own choices, but Rory knows that Amy will make the wrong choice. And so does the doctor, so...
But she doesn't want to make a choice. That's the main issue with her.
Yeah, she wants both.
She wants both.
Well, I meant more in general, not necessarily in Amy's choice, the episode. But I didn't even realize what I was doing there.
I think in general, too, because she doesn't know... No, I think also in general, but she doesn't know what she wants because she doesn't realize what Rory means to her.
I knew everything I wanted when I was 21.
And just... and he's just there, and it's really nice. And so she's worried about, if I choose this one, is there something better out there?
Right.
Now the doctor's there showing her what's out there. And she's like, I need that time. I need to see that before committing to this. So that's why I think she's saying, it's the day before the wedding as long as we want. As long as I need to look around and decide. Because the marriage to her is so final. Yeah. Which I think we can all understand now more than when we first when we first met Amy. We understand her a little bit more and can
that's what I'm saying. Like on subsequent watches of this season, I really like her. I think she's very interesting, but only in context to things you're not aware of the first time you watch it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I was totally with you, Brian, originally. Going through, it was just like, this gal's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But now understanding her journey, it's not like when you watch a movie and by the time you don't like someone, they're already starting to come around. This takes a long time. The end of this episode, when I watched it last night, really hooked me into her because, anyway, we'll get to that.
Back in town, the old woman is gone. Piles of dust are all around the playground, which turns out to be the remains of the children. The retirees from the home approach as the Dream Lord taunts Amy to choose. The doctor says there's only one person who hates him this much, so now he knows who the Dream Lord is. An old person lifts Rory off the ground and tosses him aside with ease. The group opens their mouths to reveal an alien living inside each one of them. They spray a green mist towards Amy, but she and Rory are able to run away. The doctor recognizes them as Echnodines, who were driven from their planet and came to live on Earth. They kill a passerby, and the doctor warns them to leave the planet, but instead they go after the doctor.
And thus begins the slowest chase.
She's pregnant.
I will say this episode and even the next one spatially, and I'm not even talking about that the old people can't run fast or whatever, because that can be just as creepy. The logistics of geography just don't work filmmaking wise in a lot of this episode when people are dodging the green mist.
Yeah.
And they probably could have shot it a little better to make it work better, like in editing, but it felt like an awkward stage play at times action wise. But I loved everything else so much about the episode. I just overlooked it and it's had the cheesy silliness of
You could
Doctor
argue
Who.
that it works
Yeah.
because it's like a dream reality. It's like the episode with Donna
Yeah,
where
that
you
is-
blink and you're in a different place all of a sudden.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'll buy that. I'll geek that into.
I just don't want to say anything
into
bad.
acceptance.
Don't say anything bad, okay? We can turn this around.
I agree with you, Heather, because I thought the editing really helped with that.
Didn't bother
Had
me
a good
one bit.
pace.
You're wrong, Josh. Hands down.
Oh, the pace is fine. It's just literally like the spatially.
Yeah, it was like, why didn't the green mist kill Amy?
Yeah.
But then kill the guy, the
Yeah.
passerby, because it looked like the green mist was a lot closer to Amy than it was to the passerby, and he disintegrated.
And even later on, when the doctor comes out of the freezer and runs by them, and
You could rationalize it if you want, where it's like, well, maybe the green mist couldn't kill Amy. In this reality, only Amy could die by her choice.
oh well, yeah. I mean that's
I like it.
You could go that way.
And I think what you're saying, Josh, is valid.
Totally.
Definitely valid. So I
Totally.
don't want to say that.
it also
just
could have
disagree,
very
but-
easily been like, okay, we couldn't back the camera up anymore. It was a small location, and if we did that, we would have did that, but I don't know. Or my background is also in animation, where you create all these things first.
Right.
You don't collect footage and then rein it together. If something doesn't work, you know it's not working before it's even on the page or on the screen. So like
That is so opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically like, we got to move this over a little bit so it feels good spatially, and you basically create the world from scratch and then you finish it. So I'm kind of trained to see anything that doesn't work that
Right.
way. Also, for all you know, because of the weather, they had more than one crew, so they're not checking with each other.
Yeah.
You know,
But it,
there's all
but
that
it
behind
looked
the-
great. I love that
Oh
little
yeah,
castle turret.
It's funny because
Yeah.
this episode and then the Vincent Van Gogh episode, it reminds me, it's all these ancient locations, these churches and these buildings, and it's this sci-fi stuff. And then they go hide in a church, and I can't remember what episode it was.
Hungry Earth. as
Was it
well.
Hungry Earth, where they said always hide in the oldest building? It's been
That's
Oh,
a Father's
it's
Day.
Father's Day. Oh, okay, right. It was Father's Day. Oh,
With
look at
Eccleston.
that. So
but he does send them to a church in Hungry Earth.
Right. Yeah. So that part makes sense and it's interesting, but it's also like if these things are shot in America, we don't have any sense of history like that. That's why the show is so great to be shot there.
It was built in the 80s.
Yeah.
Everybody
It's
hide in
ancient.
that abandoned blockbuster.
That's now a Shake Shack.
Well, when the kids are on the playground and the teacher tells them to go into the castle,
Yeah.
my first like American,
castle.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like-
it's like a playground castle. I'm like, oh no, she means a real castle.
Well, my
that
first
they're
thought
going
was like,
into.
are they on a field trip? You know, but no, it's next to the school.
I thought the location was really nice.
Oh yeah.
Wish the weather would work with them, but I thought
No,
the
I thought
location
the
was
weather
I
really
was
thought the
nice.
weather
perfect.
really brought.
I thought it added to the whole. You live in the most boring town in the world, and it's dreary here.
Yeah.
The weather did make me feel like the age of the old people was more appropriate. Like the weather and the constant rain and snow, like it just made them age that much quicker.
Speaking to the old people and them kind of chasing, but not really chasing them, it reminded me a lot of Dawn of the Dead, the George Romero Dawn of the Dead, where there's the countryside and all the zombies are just ambling through. But yeah, it just reminded me of those zombies, and it's like it's a force of nature rather than an impending
Lava.
threat. Yeah.
Yeah, they're totally zombies.
Yeah, and I like that.
I love it.
Is this a running joke that they're doing with Queen Elizabeth the First.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we're adding
Yeah,
that
these
in
are all
again.
callbacks and flash forwards and all that kind of stuff. Because at this point, it first started with Shakespeare Code, where Queen Elizabeth saw him and said, "Off with his head," and that's an old Queen Elizabeth. And then he says later, "Oh, I married Queen Elizabeth, haha, Virgin Queen, ha." And so now they're continuing that joke of he likes redheads. What about Elizabeth the First?
Well, she thought she was the first.
Exactly. Yeah. So yes, there is a continuation of the Doctor has some sort of past with Elizabeth the First.
And I don't think the writers or any of the writers know.
Oh, they
It's
have a clue.
We're just putting this in there, and
They're
we'll
having
figure it
fun.
out in a few years. We're going to do
And I hope-
something
I
with
hope
it.
they
Can't wait
never
for that
actually-
episode.
Yes.
What,
Yeah.
Josh?
I hope we never know.
I mean, I definitely feel because I started with Eccleston and Tennant, like those seasons I know really, really well, or at least I've seen them more often. And especially starting now, like I think I've watched it all once, but not in the way that like I remember everything that's going to be happening. So this is really fun to
Oh, this is great.
go back through.
The pensioners divide, and some of them follow Amy and Rory to their house, where they barricade themselves inside. The Doctor runs inside a butcher shop when the birds begin again. The Dream Lord taunts him, while the Doctor locks himself in the freezer before sleeping his way back to the Tardis. The Doctor and Rory argue about which world is real. Amy thinks a sun burning cold cannot be true, so obviously this is a dream. The Dream Lord appears and decides to divide them up. Rory and the Doctor fall asleep, leaving Amy on the TARDIS with the Dream Lord. There's a couple things here that I like. The first one is when Amy and Rory are in the house and they say like the Doctor just came back into our lives and he took that bullet for us. He'll be fine, you know the Doctor, he's Mr. Cool, and it cuts to him like trying to fight the sleep and wobbly running through the street. It just made me laugh so much when he did that. And then he gets into the butcher shop and he flips the sign to open and close twice. Like
Right.
you know
I'm
it's
sure that it's correct. It was a great bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then further, once the Dream Lord appears in the butcher shop and he's like, "We've got lots of steak. There's
Yeah.
lots at stake here."
That was written for you, Eugene. That joke.
And I love that line.
I thought it was interesting that it was the Doctor who first came up with separating. It's like if some of us would stay in that world and some stay on the TARDIS, we could find things out quicker. But the Dream
Lord.
Lord keeps putting us in one together. And then the Dream Lord has the idea, yeah, we should separate you guys.
The idea that you could be killed while awake in the dream world was very scary, especially when they're outside and they fall asleep outside with the threat out there with them.
Oh, you
like
mean the
or-
time
when
is
you fall
passing
as-
in both at the
Yeah,
same
because
speed?
time keeps passing.
And he says to
in
them, "Don't
both.
spend too long in the village. It's going
Right.
to get mighty cold in here." Yeah.
Right, and then on the TARDIS they could die of freezing, and in the village they could die by being green smoke and then disintegrating. And the fact that that could happen while you're awake in the other world,
Right.
I think is pretty darn scary.
Yeah.
That was the scariest part, I think. But that's why I liked Amy making the ponchos out of the blankets. So that they'll
Little
stay.
bit of levity.
But it's also they'll stay warm
Oh,
and they
okay.
won't fall off. It's
And they're going to die dignified like a Peruvian folk band.
Well, I thought that was a smart idea. I wish you would have covered them up with another blanket while they were there and she was awake.
On first watching when the Doctor was stumbling, it's one of like I felt like, okay, how long does it take to go to sleep? Because he took a long time.
He was
to go
fighting
to
it,
sleep.
though.
He wasn't fighting it though.
He was fighting it, and upon fully understanding the nature of what is happening,
Right.
it makes a lot of sense
It makes-
because the Dream Lord is just
Yeah.
playing with him and keeping him like, yes, it does make sense. But on first watching, it's like, geez, like fall asleep already or don't.
It's like when you're streaming your 7th episode of a show and it's 2:00 in the morning.
yeah.
Rory wakes up in their home next to a sleeping Amy. Old people are breaking in, so he pulls her upstairs to the nursery. Out the window, he sees more old people arrive and secures the nursery door. The Doctor awakes in the freezer and opens the door, sonics the ceiling lights to explode, and makes a run for it. He hijacks a van, and on his way to Amy and Rory's, gathers townspeople to get them away from danger. He drops them off at a church, tells them to be safe, and continues on.
I always think it's so weird to watch the Doctor drive a car. I don't know why.
Well, then Heather, don't watch any of the third Doctor.
Yeah, no, he
don't
only
watch
has a
Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, I think this is the best use of the 11th Doctor's theme because it feels dangerous as he's driving away and getting away from all these older people zombies. And I thought that because in I think Vampires of Venice, it comes out of nowhere in another piece of music where this one it fits like that that urgency is there with that piece of music.
When he was in danger in the butcher shop, I felt like the Doctor's theme had more of an ominous key, where it felt like it's the same tune, but now he's in danger. It didn't sound heroic, and I thought it was a really good use of it.
Did anyone else think that in the butcher shop, the Doctor's falling asleep, but then the Dream Lord kind of wakes him up and says, "No, I'm not ready for you to fall asleep yet"?
A little bit. Yeah.
Because he wanted to torture him?
Yeah, or play with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mentally torture.
And like Auburn said, in hindsight, makes sense.
Or was it to try and save the Doctor? Because the townspeople were coming. It's like, if you fall asleep here, you're dead.
Maybe
he's not ready for
was
it.
both.
Because if he did die there, he would have woken up on the Tardis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Possible.
So
No, he would have.
Possibly.
the game would have been
I know,
up.
but as a storyline, it's like, no, it could have
Yeah.
been dead.
Yeah, he could have been dead, but
In the nursery room, I think this is where these lines are. I wrote them down. It's Amy says, "I think the baby's starting." Rory, "Honestly, would I make it up at a time like this? Well, you do have a history of being very lovely."
Yeah.
That was great.
yeah.
Arthur Darvill is fantastic.
yes.
I can't.
I
See,
agree.
the only problem is every time he plays another role, I have a hard time not seeing him
Yeah.
as Rory.
He plays other roles.
No, he's just Rory in other shows.
Amy questions the Dream Lord about who he is. He questions her about which man she will choose. Once she chooses, the nightmare will end. Dashing adventurer or ponytail boy? The Dream Lord transports to the other reality, joining the Doctor in the van. He asks why the Doctor calls these companions friends when he leaves them and never comes back. At the nursery, Amy wakes up and Rory cuts off his ponytail for her, and she had just started to like it. At that moment, the Doctor crawls in through the second-story window. The old woman climbs to another window and breaks into the room. She attacks Rory with the green mist. The Doctor pushes her out the window, but cannot help Rory. As he lies next to Amy, his body crumbles to dust.
There's so many great things that happen in this part. First, he cuts the ponytail off, and he does it like it's the most heroic thing.
Well, but this is how I feel. The episode's called Amy's Choice. It's his cutting the ponytail that makes her choose.
Is it?
Yeah, because that's the moment she realizes that Rory will change for her.
No.
Rory will.
I don't.
No, because her reaction is, I was
The
beginning.
Doctor will never change.
But I was beginning to like it, so she was
yeah,
already
but she
getting
knows.
that
But
place.
she's getting used to it. I think to me it's that moment. That's when she realizes what Amy will do for her.
What Rory will do.
Or,
Say that
sorry,
again.
what Rory would do for her.
I think that contributes to it, but I think it's the moment that happens
Yeah.
later when he
The next seal's
Yeah,
the
oh,
deal.
actually,
but
yeah,
to
yeah.
me, this is what you know.
He
part of
rendered
it.
me speechless. I really don't know what to think about that.
Well,
Yeah, that's why I thought it was going to be
well, to
controversial,
me,
but that's
though,
how I see it.
After he dies, she says, "I didn't know until now, like, to actually feel the loss," because she grew up with Rory, so she's never experienced life without him. So to actually feel that loss and feel what it's like to live without him, that's the only way she was able to realize what he meant to her.
And for me, that's fine, that's acceptable, but it's a cliche. It's used all the time. It's like I didn't realize I loved them
Until they were gone.
Until they were gone. I think she really realizes she loves Rory when he cuts the ponytail off. And it's also one of those. It's a silly, stupid little thing. Who cares about the ponytail? Rory is just the coolest, greatest guy for Amy ever. That's how I look at it. And every time I watch it, I feel more that way. The moment he cuts the ponytail off, it was like, oh, he cuts his ponytail off.
Actually, I don't hate that idea. I know you probably expected that I would, but I don't hate that idea because
I got one.
Well, I feel like there's merit in it, and they make such a big deal about the ponytail anyway. And maybe it's not.
And please don't
maybe
get
it's
me
not
wrong.
completely a joke. Maybe it has some meaning.
To me, that's the reason why the ponytail is in the story, because he has this silly, stupid thing. He thinks this is what makes him a rebel and wild. Amy doesn't like it, and so at the end, when they're about to die, he says, "Oh, you don't like this? I'm getting rid of it."
It is it's the most
It's
tender
just
exchange that they have in the whole episode.
Exactly. And to me, it would be just too much of a cliche of Rory's dead. I need Rory back. To me, it's like she needed a moment beforehand to remember what it is she likes about Rory in life.
Also, to your point, it's symbolically, he sacrificed what he thought made him cool. The Doctor would never sacrifice what he thinks makes him cool.
Exactly. The Doctor will never change.
He'd never give up his bow ties for Amy.
How about this to add on to it, Brian? This is the Doctor's dream. This is a doctor's idea of what makes Rory cool.
Right.
Rory's cutting that part off and being just Rory. So that's what she sees. And it's like, I was kind of liking it, but she sees that's Rory. So that could be trying to back you up there. I'm looking at it a little differently. I'll have to
Me too.
look
You've
at it a little
changed-
bit more.
you've changed
but
me.
it is a good point. I like that. I like seeing things a little bit differently now.
And it's a little thing, but I think it's the important. It's because it is the little things. It's like he has one tiny, sweet little moment.
That's probably how he got her in the end, in the first place. Anyway, it's probably how they got engaged. And
This is the doctor's dream, not Amy's. The doctor is telling Amy, I am not going to change. Rory will. He's telling her that in a subconscious way. He needs her to understand that yes, you're going to have this life with me, but it's going to come to an end because it always has come to an end. She needs to realize that she is in love with Rory. He went back and got Rory from the bachelor party to keep these two together. He's now in a dream state where she is being told she has to choose between the two of them. He's saying, I'm never going to change, and you have Rory. I think it's the doctor. The doctor isn't making Rory cutting his hair off. The doctor is allowing, in the dream, Amy to see something of how much Rory loves Amy and what Rory is as opposed to what the doctor is. And it's so sweet, and it's like, I'm sorry, but you're in the middle of this death crisis and you're cutting your ponytail. Who cares? But she does. She looks at him, the way she looks at him, and it's just kind of like, and yeah, she does make a joke. Oh, I was just beginning to like it.
It's a sweet joke. It's not
It's
a
very
sarcastic.
sweet. She's not trying to hurt
Oh
him.
my gosh, you actually did that. And it's a touching part. His face is comical as in, I didn't have to do this kind of look. But I think from Rory's point of view, he doesn't know if she loves him. He doesn't know if he loves her. He doesn't know if it's reciprocated.
And I also-
especially
He
since
doesn't.
putting off the wedding, going off with the
And I
doctor.
also think it's a bit of, she really doesn't know how much I love her.
Yes.
And that's why he has to
Well,
keep
he does.
proving himself, like cutting off the ponytail.
Right.
Which to me is my favorite. If you couldn't tell this, that was the favorite moment for me.
I don't think Amy isn't ready to love Rory or to be with Rory. I think she's just not ready to be married. So it's not about him. It's about what the marriage represents or has represented up until this moment.
Well, then maybe it's just me. I don't know how much she loved him from
Right.
what we've seen.
I don't even think she did. I think she was just enmeshing those two ideas, marriage and Rory, together. When in reality, it really wasn't about Rory.
There's two different
She's
issues
just like,
for her.
oh, of course I'm going to be with you, Rory. Just not right now. Like, she's not ready to settle down. But she knows when she does, it's going to be Rory. And
I agree.
on a certain level.
I agree. I have a theory about Amy. I have a theory about Amy that is very much in line with what Josh was saying. For me, I see Amy as an independent, free spirit who inconveniently fell in love with Rory.
I just wish it was written better then. I don't like her. And again, if that whole scene where she's going after the doctor, it's like, if that wasn't there, maybe I would feel different and I would understand her conflict. But she already committed. She committed to cheat on Rory. And at this point, it's just like, no, Rory's awesome. You're not. That's me.
To lighten things up a little bit, when the doctor pushes the elderly woman off of the roof,
Yeah.
it made me laugh.
Yeah.
This time, I don't know why. It's obviously a stunt double.
I also love the fact that he grabs a tiny lamp to push her, because I'm sure they were like, we can't have the doctor physically grab an old woman and push her off a roof.
It just reminds me of like the juxtaposition between the stakes, the emergency of this, and then the doctor wobbly running through. That was beautifully executed, and then this where the doctor pushes somebody off of a ledge. And then to bring it down a little bit, when Rory and the doctor meet up in the top, Rory asks, why are they so desperate to kill us? The doctor responds with, they're scared. Fear generates savagery. And I just thought that was so poignant in our political climate today.
Yikes.
Yeah.
It's almost like with all the companions, we see them falling in love with the doctor, but what they're really falling in love with is what the doctor brings. But instead of falling in love with that, they equate all that excitement with the doctor. Because we talk about our companions falling in love with the doctor in the sense of adventure, but the doctor has remained pretty constant and not a likable person if he didn't have
And he's been upfront about it.
the box. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Dream Lord, the doctor is saying to the doctor, why do you call these people friends?
You just leave them in the
You
end.
just leave them. You just abandon them. And that is consistently what the Doctor has done and will continue to do, because, that's the reality of TV production. But this is a theme that Stephen Moffat's going to pick up on, and he's going to continue it, where it is like, how do you treat your companions when they leave, is something that Moffat's thought about a lot.
Speaking of that, I think this is at the point in the episode where the Dream Lord asks Amy, how well do you know the Doctor? Has he even told you his name? So I think that's the first time we get the mention of the Doctor's name.
Yeah.
That's the first time in this season that they mention the Doctor's name.
Which is their go-to, oh, you know him so well, what's his name? It's like, his name's the Doctor.
Why do you even care?
Since the Doctor is useless and can't save him, Amy makes her choice. This world must be the dream. If they die here, they will wake up in reality and she will be with Rory. If not, she will at least be with Rory in death. As she and the Doctor leave the house, none of the old people attack them. Amy takes the keys to the van from the Doctor and they both get inside. She drives at full speed into the house, killing them both. They wake up, partially frozen on the Tardis floor. The Dream Lord says, fair is fair, turns on the power to warm them up, and moves the Tardis away from the cold star. He has been defeated and says his farewell. Amy hugs Rory as the Doctor begins activating switches and levers on the console panel. He believes the Dream Lord cannot affect reality and was showing them two dream worlds. They need to die in both to wake up. The TARDIS explodes.
Rory's death, when I first watched this, was so impactful. Karen Gillan's acting is what sells it for me, because when he turns to dust, Rory says, take care of our baby. And he doesn't know that this is the dream, and it's just heartbreaking. And then the Doctor mouths Amy, like he feels sorry for her at that moment. And then Amy says, save him. You save everyone. You always do it. It's what you do. The Doctor responds with, not always. He pauses and then says, I'm sorry. Then Amy replies with, then what is the point of you? That really got me. I was like, this is a great episode because of that.
And the moment that got me was when they're right outside the van and he's saying, what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? What if you're wrong?
Yeah.
She looks at him and says, I just want him. And the Doctor's response is, okay. And that's it.
Yeah.
He hops in the van with her.
And that's the point in the episode where he says to her, the Dream Lord does, you have to choose between the Doctor and Rory. But the actual episode, to me, the choice is with or without Rory. Like, either with Rory or death. Like, her final choice. So I think it's kind of like that, a bit of a mislead on purpose with the title.
And he says that line of, his name is the Dream Lord. He can't affect reality. He can affect dreams. So these are both a dream. It's a very logical conclusion, something that I think the Doctor would come to eventually. I don't know exactly when he got to it, but I think he suspects. And he also does realize we're not staying in a reality without Amy's not staying in a reality without Rory.
And
so yeah,
he's also
take
watching her go through this the same way that we are as viewers, and he is also affected by it the way that we were, and this is the result that I think he wanted all along. And so I think he just trusts her. He just goes with it, like, okay, this is what this is kind of what I was hoping would happen, even though it's terrible.
Yeah.
I think right before this, the Doctor was expressing doubts about whether or not the TARDIS was real, because for most of the episode he was saying that the TARDIS was the real world. So, and now after Brian's comment, I think it is because he's putting together that they're both dreams. But in the moment, it was very nice to have those doubts play out, and he was still willing to go along with Amy, even not being fully confident that they were gonna wake up after this car crash.
Yeah, I still, like I said, my favorite thing is I just want him. And the Doctor says, okay, he's not fighting anymore at that point. And I think that's sincere. I think that's real. Up until that point, I think he really was like, what if we're wrong? What if we're wrong? What if we're wrong? He's had little hints, but what if you're wrong?
I also think there's remnant of survivor's guilt too from the time war. Like, she's going through a loss like he went through to a certain extent. And I think all along, like, just like what we find out who the Time Lord is at the end, like, he feels like he deserves this. Like, if we're gonna die in this moment, I deserve it anyway. I've been putting it off for long enough. I couldn't even save Rory. I couldn't even save my people. I guess this is the time that I go.
There's also a part of me that thinks he couldn't get enough speed going through that
There's
garden.
no way.
And that's part of my argument earlier.
Yeah.
It's things like that throughout the episode that is the only thing about the episode.
That was the only one. That was the only one where I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you logic it away. It's a dream. It's the act of doing that that is important. When the Dream Lord concedes and says fair is fair, it reminded me of Mr. Mxyzptlk as like the imp playing with Superman, and he's like, you won the game, fair is fair, or Q from Star Trek. But yeah, it's just like Q when he's playing with Picard, and then, he's like, okay, you won, I'm done. And I kind of like that in a villain, where he's like, these are the rules of the game, and you won. I don't know, it's simple.
But it's never that simple, Eugene.
I know, that's why I like it, because it's not that simple. The TARDIS explodes, and they all wake up in the real TARDIS. The Doctor shows them specks of psychic pollen that was caught in the Time Rotor. It induced the dream state, feeding on the dark side of his psyche and turning it against him. Meaning, the Dream Lord was part of the Doctor, the part that he feared. He releases the pollen into the cold of space. Amy tells Rory that she crashed the van after he died in that world. They kiss and all agree it's Amy's choice where to go next.
I really like how they didn't spell out what she meant when she explained it to Rory. Like, he figured it all out silently. We didn't need some explanation.
All right. Yeah, I know. But I was already dead. Yes. Figure it out.
Don't make me say it.
Brian, I know you were saying earlier that you were kind of disappointed by who the Dream Lord actually ended up being. Do you feel any different
at the time?
Okay, I was going to ask, do you feel any different now that we've just talked about it? Because I do.
Yes, very much. Yeah, and I mean, I felt different about it for a little while now.
See, but I've always been kind of, even with my love of this episode, I've always been kind of bummed out by that ending. But I feel like I've never really thought of this as being, well, I knew it was the Doctor's dream, but just the way we've talked about how it's the Doctor's subconscious way of sort of, because obviously I think a large part of the Doctor would like Amy to choose him, but obviously the goal here, I think, is to get her to not choose him. So just this internal battle that he's had in his mind, it's made me actually just understand this ending so much better, just in this last hour.
Also, the other thing, too, is on repeat viewings, I really pick up and identify with the line where the Doctor says, there's only one person who hates me this much, so I know who the Dream Lord is. And it's like,
yeah,
but it's so true.
Yeah. And I think that's why he always needs a companion, because if he's alone, he doesn't like himself. Yeah. And that's why he's always telling everyone and himself how great he is.
But that, to me, gives it an okay for it at the end to be the Doctor.
Yeah. Well, what confused me the first time I watched it, and I didn't like it, now I think it's fine, is that, so I was questioning, so did the spores have, like, malintent? Like, were they evil spores, or they just affected his mind and his own internal battles manifest?
He does refer to them as parasites.
They were evil.
I don't think they're sentient.
Right,
I just think they do what they do.
I
don't understand why he releases them to destroy them. The way that he was
because
talking
it's life,
about
because
how,
he gives it a chance.
but how destructive they were.
It's a life form. Got to give it a second chance.
And they only initiated the dream state because they got caught in the Time Rotor and heated up. But with Time Rotor energy, not just normal heat.
But I'm thinking
like
out of the cold of space will keep them dormant. But it's just like, it's a potential problem.
Yeah.
It's the hippie. That's why he's in a
Lock
VW
them up in
bug.
one part of the TARDIS, but just to release them to cause havoc later on.
He's not Superman. He doesn't have a zoo in his Fortress of Solitude. It's kind of like Tapestry and The Next Generation. Q sets a world in motion where Picard is not the captain. He's a lowly lieutenant because he changed his life, and he tells Picard, everything that happens won't affect anybody else but you, but everything that you do affects you. Make your choice. So, the Doctor, this is the Doctor's dream, but the Doctor's not controlling the dream. The Doctor's dark psyche created the world, and it didn't create the world to say, at the end of this crisis, Amy will be with Rory. It was the Doctor's psyche created this, and at the end of this crisis, Amy will have made her choice.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's like real life pollen, where if your immune system is already compromised, it will make you feel sick. So if the Doctor is already having this guilt and these thoughts, maybe he's more susceptible to whatever this freak stuff is.
That's exactly it. It's like a real dream. Your dreams are just your subconscious sorting out all your BS in your head. So that's what happened here. This was already a part of him. it just plopped them in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I like that it ends up being the Doctor who's the Dream Lord, because it's such a small ending in a way. It's not a great big villain. It's the
Right.
Doctor's subconscious that when you watch it on repeat viewing, you forget that that's who
Yeah.
the Dream Lord is, because it's so almost insignificant. That's what makes this episode a fun repeat viewing one, because you don't remember, or you may not remember, how it ends.
Yeah, and as cheesy as it was, that little moment where he sees the Dream Lord in his reflection, I really like that, because it's like, this. It's basically himself saying to himself, "This ain't going away.
I'm still here.
Yeah, this problem is still happening."
Well, I think it's explained really well when at the very beginning they're sitting on the bench and he goes, "So what do you do to offset all of the thing?" And she says, "Boredom." He goes, "Self-harm."
Oh yeah, that was so
I
good.
missed that.
That was
Okay, that
hysterical.
explains this all.
I'd like Rory's last line, "I'm happy going anywhere." And it should be Amy's choice. And Rory's just like, "I'm happy going anywhere because I'm with Amy." And he doesn't need to say I'm with Amy. And he's also saying, "I'm happy to be in the TARDIS. I'm happy to be with the Doctor because I'm with Amy."
So we mentioned Toby Jones as the Dream Lord earlier.
Oh, that was Toby Jones?
What's he been
What's
in?
he been in?
Rewind about an hour and a half.
It's funny.
You know, he sounds like Dobby on Harry Potter.
Not that he looks like him at all, but he really reminded me of the actor who plays Moriarty in the Sherlock series in a lot of moments. And I don't know why. Something about his mouth and his smile just kept reminding me of him. Anyway.
Nick Hobbs, he plays Mr. Nainby. He was the guy that I think gave the candy to Rory and when he was young. And he's a stuntman.
Oh.
He was a stuntman most recently in Wonder Woman, a bunch of the Harry Potter movies, Captain America: The First Avenger, Game of Thrones, and he has classic Who connections with being a Wyrn operator in The Ark in Space, Part 4, and an Auton and a Daffodil Man in Terror of the Autons. So both episodes we have done.
And he worked on the same stuff that Toby Jones did. You said.
Yes, with Captain America. He also played, I don't think I've seen this one, but Agador alongside the Third Doctor, John Pertwee, in the story. Oh, I have seen this. The Curse of Peladon and the Monster of Peladon. I haven't seen the Monster of Peladon. And he was also a lorry driver in The Claw of Axos.
Where do they get the word lorry? I just don't get. No, where'd lorry come from? Anyway,
Lorry, a long flat wagon,
Yes.
1838, British railroad word, probably from the verb lurry, to pull. Tug.
Now we know.
There you go.
still stupid.
Joan Linder plays Miss Hamill. Audrey Ardington plays Miss Poggett, and she was in the Sarah Jane Adventures, The Eye of Gorgon. She was the abbess, and that's the one with the nun and the nun ghost at the old folks' home episode.
And I think we should give a shout out to the director. I know you mentioned her name at the beginning, but Catherine Mooreshead. I mean, I think just like this show was really.
Worked on it at a lot of levels.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with the writer and director. But yeah, definitely give credit to the director. I looked her up a little bit. She worked on Shameless, which was originally a British show.
Yeah.
So like, and some other things that were kind of in that vein of like dramatic people coming together and having those like quick conversations and on levels. So
And she will be doing another Doctor Who
Oh, great.
episode, The Lodger.
okay.
So, Amy's choice. Who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
I'm going to go with casual. I'm going right to it, aren't I? I think it could be, I thought for just a regular first time, it would be too much back and forth, not really invested in the characters. But I think if you understand a little bit more about what Doctor Who is, just a casual viewer, you'd pick up on this. It explains a lot between the two worlds and what her choice is. So I think you'd still enjoy it. Casual.
I'm gonna say a new viewer, both because I really enjoyed the episode, and also I think it gives you a little bit of that timey-wiminess in the beginning before you understand what the switching is all about. You're presented with, oh, they're 5 years in the future, and then they're going back in time. It doesn't last long, but it gives you a little bit of that. And I mean, just the humor, the directing, the acting is all so good in this episode. I feel like hopefully somebody watching it would be more intrigued to continue watching other episodes.
Yeah, I agree with you, Auburn. I think this is good for a new viewer because it's got everything that Doctor Who is, especially the heart of it, where I think someone who's never watched it wouldn't even think that was an aspect of the show. They think it's just cheesy sci-fi, and when the show is that, it's just a backdrop for all this very emotional and psychological storylines. And I think it also has a ton of stuff there, obviously, like we've been saying, for diehards and people like that. So it works on all the levels, but I think there's so much good stuff and fun stuff in here that I'd be good to show this to a new viewer.
I'm going to agree with Frank. I think I could show this to a new viewer because I agree with Auburn. It's such a solid episode, but I don't think you're going to get as much out of it because there is such a focus on relationships in this episode that I would either have to explain a lot to the new viewer to help them understand who Rory is and who the Doctor is and who both of them are to Amy. So I think a casual viewer this is best for a casual viewer who already knows a little bit about Amy and Rory and Doctor and their relationships. And on top of that, I also think this is a great repeat episode for a fan. I enjoy this episode every time I watch it. But I'm going to go with casual.
I too am going to say casual because it's worthy of being a new Who viewer, but I don't want to rob the new viewer of seeing things that they're not familiar with the context. So I want them to know how they all relate to each other. It would be great for a new viewer because there's no big mystery, there's no crack in the wall in this episode. It is very standalone. But I don't know if a new viewer would get confused at the end with that shot in the mirror, in the reflection when you see Toby Jones again. It's almost like, oh, is this like a horror movie? You thought you defeated the villain and it's just going to show back up? So I would say a casual person, somebody who's familiar with what Doctor Who is, who these characters are, I think they would love it.
I have the unique perspective of being a new Who viewer with this episode. And this is my very first Doctor Who episode ever.
That's why we switched things around so she could be on this episode.
Yes, it was essential that I be on this episode. So I can tell you from experience that I technically kind of agree with you, Kelsey and Frank and Brian, because I had no idea what the hell was going on. And however, I agree with myself that it's for a new Who viewer as well, because that is exactly what whet my appetite and made me go back to the first episode, because I really, really wanted to know what the hell I just saw. And I was willing to watch 5 seasons to get there. So I went back to Christopher Eccleston.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was familiar with the concept that there was multiple actors for the Doctor, and I knew what a Tardis was, and that was the extent of my knowledge. So I don't disagree with you choosing casual, because I definitely was very lost. But being lost just happened to have a positive effect on my view of the show. So I really like this episode because it was my first, and Matt Smith is my Doctor because he was my first. So now that probably explains a lot about my feelings in general towards this show. And this was the first episode where I almost sort of kind of started to like Amy a tiny bit. And it also made you understand that maybe Amy being so unlikable before was intentional part of showing character growth. Yeah, so I'm going to go with new. And thank you for letting me talk about this episode. I like it a lot.
Now that I know what Heather thinks, I'd like to change my answer to Die Hard.
How hard do you want me to slap him?
Oh, have you not met me yet?
Yeah, I've met you. I've had the pleasure.
That says it all.
I'm not an ogre.
Amy's choice is... This episode reminds me a lot of other things that I mentioned, like with Q on Star Trek and Total Recall. with the different realities and deciding which one is the real one versus which one is the fantasy. And then even so far as to another Superman reference with, I think it's one of his annuals, The Black Mercy, where it's
Yes.
where it's a fantasy reality of what you have in your subconscious, what you want.
What you want,
Yeah. And I kept thinking, do I know somebody that was introduced to this episode? And I just kept thinking, who is this good for? Oh, that's right. Heather was introduced to this episode. So for me, it is a new Who viewer for Amy's Choice.
Yes.
It's a pretty
See,
simple.
Heather just has the intelligence to know this is really good, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna
well-
figure it out. The common person's gonna be, I'm confused.
But also, Heather said we had points where she was confused.
Yeah, but she's one of those, and I'm gonna figure them out.
But I still know that person who was confused the right amount
The right amount
to
yeah.
go back and
Confused
rewatch
the right
and get up
amount.
to that point.
Well, yes, I agree that not everybody will be confused the right amount, which is why I also think that Kelsey and Frank are right too. I think everybody is right.
I made a bad joke and then I made a good comment. Come on. I'm saying you were intelligent. You figured
Oh,
it
yeah,
out.
no, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Because it's true.
Aw.
I'm gonna whine some more.
Well, I guess you haven't met Brian.
Yeah. That's true.
So that wraps up Amy's Choice. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time when the future becomes the present, or the past, or the other past.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn.
You can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
Also, listen to us on your Amazon Echo by enabling a podcast skill.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival, spearheaded by Russell T. Davis,
Thanks to Russell.
Sydney Newman.
Verity Lambert.
Ron Grainer.
Delia Derbyshire.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
Hey, this is Eugene. Got a quick update on Rose City Comic Con that is happening again on September 13th through the 15th at the Oregon Convention Center in Portland, Oregon. The Who Knew Podcast will be there. We'll have some new buttons and some other things to give out. We hope to see and meet some of you listeners out there. For Saturday, the big Doctor Who thing going on is going to be at 3:25 p.m. in Room 1. I'm just going to read this from the Rose City Comic Con website. Join us for this extra-large panel. First up, she's one of the most beloved companions in Doctor Who, Billie Piper Rose. Then midway through, you'll get to see the man who helped bring the series back to greatness, Christopher Eccleston. If you're a Whovian, this is a panel you won't want to miss. That's going to be a big 80-minute panel on Saturday, 3:25 p.m. in Room 1. Also on Saturday, in Room 7, me and Josh will be having a conversation. The animation is going to be specific to our parts of the entertainment industry. Josh is currently a supervising director, and I have been in the entertainment industry for a number of years, so we are going to be talking about mostly his career, but we're going to just be talking about animation in general. And then on Sunday, the Who Knew Podcast is going to bring you back-to-back Doctor Who panels. In Room 4 at noon on Sunday, we are going to be doing our Season 5 overview. For many people, Matt Smith was their first Doctor, so we're doing his first official season as the Doctor. With Jodie Whittaker having her first season under the belt, we thought it was appropriate to do a retrospective for the fans that are going to be in Portland, Oregon. And then following that panel, we're going to stay in the same room, Room 4 at 1 p.m., and we'll be doing a Doctor Who trivia game. Most of our panelists will be from the podcast, and we might throw it out to the audience, and we're going to have some prizes for those who participate. For information and tickets, please go to rosecitycomiccon.com. We hope to see you there.